The tragic death of Ayrton Senna. How he lived was sad. Imagine dying while doing what you loved most. That's what happened to Ayrton Senna. This is the story of his tragic death. Let's get into it. Ayrton Senna was born on Monday, March 21st, 1960, at the Pro-Matre Maternity Hospital in Santana, a neighborhood of São Paulo. His first kart was made by his father using a small 1-horsepower lawnmower engine. Senna began racing at Interlagos and joined his first karting competition at 13. He started his first race from pole position, competing against older rivals. Despite this, he led most of the race before retiring after a collision with another racer. His father was very supportive, and soon Lucio Pascal Gascon started managing his growing talent. Senna won the South American Kart Championship in 1977 and competed in the Karting World Championship every year from 1978 to 1982, finishing as a runner-up in 1979 and 1980. In 1981, he moved to Eaton near Norwich in England to start single-seater racing. That year, he won the RAC and Townsend Thoresen Formula Ford 1600 championships with the Diemen team. In 1982, Senna won both the British and European Formula Ford 2000 championships. By 1983, he was driving in the British Formula 3 Championship for West Surrey Racing. Senna dominated the first half of the season, but Martin Brundle, driving a similar car for Eddie Jordan Racing, closed the gap in the second half. Senna won the title in the final round after a fierce and sometimes tense battle with Brundle. Then began his journey into Formula 1, a path that promised glory but ultimately turned dark, leading to the tragic end of his life. In 1983, Senna tested for several Formula 1 teams, including Williams, McLaren, Brabham and Tolman. He impressed the Brabham team and was considered for their second seat. In 1984, Senna made his debut at the Brazilian Grand Prix in Rio de Janeiro. He qualified 17th, but had to retire on lap 8 when the Hart 415T turbocharger failed. That season, Senna managed to get on the podium 2 more times, finishing 3rd at both the British and Portuguese Grand Prix. He ended up 9th in the Drivers' Championship with a total of 13 points. Then, problems started to come in, from broken promises to the serious start of Bell's palsy, marking a rough time in Senna's life. Senna missed the Italian Grand Prix because Tolman suspended him for breaching his contract by talking to Lotus about a 1985 deal without informing them first. Although he had a €100,000 buyout clause, he was supposed to notify Tolman before starting talks with another team. Senna became the first driver signed by Lotus who wasn't personally chosen by team founder Colin Chapman, who had passed away in 1982. By the end of the year, Senna developed Bell's palsy, possibly from a virus, which left one side of his face completely paralyzed. Sid Watkins gave him steroids to help preserve the chance of recovery. Senna led the races at San Marino, Monaco, Britain and Germany, but had to retire from all of them due to engine failures or running out of fuel. He also had a major accident at the French Grand Prix at the Circuit Paul Ricard's fastest corner after an engine failure in the middle of the turn. Senna grew unhappy with his prospects at Lotus, and at Monza it was announced he would join McLaren for 1988. Earlier, he was fined $15,000 for hitting a corner marshal who wouldn't push his stalled car in Mexico. Despite the incident, Senna finished the season strongly, taking second place in the final 2 races in Japan and Australia. However, after the last race, officials found that the brake ducts on his Lotus were wider than allowed by the rules. As a result, he was disqualified, ending his last and most successful season with Lotus on a bitter note. Also, I'm sure you might remember how his intense rivalry with Alain Prost ignited the F1 world. In 1988, Senna joined McLaren thanks to his strong relationship with Honda from his 1987 season at Lotus, and with the approval of McLaren's top driver and then double world champion Alain Prost. The rivalry between Senna and Prost heated up in 1989, leading to intense battles on the track and a psychological showdown off it. Tensions and distrust between the 2 drivers escalated when Senna passed Prost at the restart of the San Marino Grand Prix, a move Prost argued went against their pre-race agreement. In the winter of 1989, Senna faced a hefty fine and a temporary suspension of his FIA super license. Angry and vocal, he publicly criticized the FIA and its president at the time, Jean-Marie Ballester. Senna blamed Ballester for his disqualification in Japan, claiming the decision was influenced to favor his French rival Prost. However, race stewards denied Ballester's direct involvement, stating he wasn't present during their decision-making. Despite the controversies, Senna finished the season in second place with 6 wins and 1 second place. Prost, unable to tolerate the tense atmosphere with Senna, left McLaren for Ferrari the following year. He then uncovered his dark secret. But before diving into it, make sure to subscribe if you already haven't. A year later, after winning his 3rd World Championship, Senna admitted that he deliberately crashed into Prost at the previous year's Japanese Grand Prix. He explained to the press why he did it, saying it was payback for what happened in 1989. Senna claimed that before qualifying fastest, officials promised him pole position on the clean side of the track, only to change their minds after he secured pole. He felt this was unfair, especially given his past issues with the FIA. Senna insisted he wouldn't back down, knowing Prost would collide if he took the usual racing line. Prost criticized Senna's actions strongly, calling them disgusting and admitting he considered quitting racing after the incident. But then, his end was almost there. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix tragically claimed his life. During Saturday's qualifying session, Austrian rookie Roland Ratzenberger tragically lost his life when his Semtech Ford's front wing failed at 310 km an hour, causing a devastating crash into the Volvenu Corner's concrete wall. Senna rushed to the scene and then to the medical centre, where he met FIA Medical Chief Professor Sid Watkins. Watkins, seeing Senna's distress, suggested he retire from racing and take up their shared hobby of fishing. Senna tearfully replied that he couldn't quit racing. Later, Senna faced scrutiny for commandeering an official car and scaling the medical centre fence, leading to a heated confrontation with the stewards, though he escaped punishment. On his final Sunday morning, Senna spent time with former rival Alain Prost, discussing plans to revive the Grand Prix Drivers Association, aimed at improving Formula One safety. As Senna approached the Tamburello corner on lap 7, his car suddenly veered off the racing line at 307 km an hour, shooting straight off the track and slamming into the concrete wall at 233 km per hour. Telemetry showed he had applied the brakes briefly just before impact. The race was immediately halted due to the severity of the crash. Within moments, Senna was extracted from his car by Dr. Sid Watkins and his medical team, including anesthesiast Giovanni Giordini. They worked urgently, treating Senna beside the car as he struggled with a weak heartbeat and severe blood loss from a ruptured artery in his head. By then, he had lost about 90% of his blood volume, a critical situation. Recognizing the gravity of Senna's condition, Dr. Watkins performed a tracheotomy at the scene and arranged for Senna to be airlifted to Maggiore Hospital in Bologna under Dr. Giordini's care. Later that evening, hospital officials sadly announced Senna's passing. They noted that according to Italian law, his time of death was officially declared at 14:17 CEST, the moment of impact when his brain ceased functioning. Dr. Watkins recalled the moment he realized Senna's injuries were unsurvivable, noting the fully dilated pupils that indicated his brainstem had stopped working. The injuries were devastating. The right front wheel and suspension had struck Senna's helmet, causing fatal skull fractures, severe brain trauma, and rupturing a major artery. Even one of these injuries would likely have been fatal. In a poignant discovery, a furled Austrian flag was found in Senna's car, intended to honour Ratzenberger after the race. A poignant gesture amidst the tragedy. Photographs of Senna receiving medical aid on the track were taken by his friend Angelo Orsi, but have never been officially released out of respect for Senna's memory. Senna's legacy will forever live on in the hearts of fans. Don't forget to comment telling us who you want us to cover next. We will see you soon.